some of the we know some of the challenges that you face is violence within political parties. We know the numbers are very, very low. And we know the amount of money that it takes to run for public office. We did something very exciting when I was in Nigeria with UNIFEM, and I'm so honored to have worked with Tolu Tomoka Lewis. We designed something on the US model called Emily's List, but it was the Nigerian Women's Trust that was finally approved by the Ministerial Office for Women in Nigeria. And that was to start a fund for women to run for public office. I just want to say a couple of things. One, be of good courage. Two, women are 52% of our population. Three, we need peacemakers, as you have all done. When I worked with the G40 Women on Peace and Security in the Great Horn of Africa, we realized after many, many bumps when we were working with the women of Sudan and a number of other places that we needed to come together. So I'm here just to celebrate being with you this morning. And what an honor to see so many of the organizations that I have worked with on the ground. So to all of you, I just want to give out a big, big jumbo. Thank you, Huri.
Jackie, thank you. You certainly helped me out this morning, welcoming our sisters from all over the world. And I'm going to hand over the mic now to Lois. I don't know if I see you. Please put yourself on camera, but the caucus is yours to begin.
Hi, Huri. I just wanted to get an indication that you can hear us. Okay, we are here. I don't know whether you can. We want to make sure that even our online audience can hear us. Excellent, excellent, excellent. We want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for connecting and joining us for the Africa Regional Caucus this week. Our conversation will be facilitated by Fadzai, Fadzai Traquino, who is one of the members of the NGO CSW Africa. And we are hoping to have a fruitful, lively conversation, and thanks for connecting. Allow me then to turn it over to Fadzai.
Thank you, Huri. And I just want to welcome once again all our delegates, our online delegates, and those that sitting with us here in Nairobi. And as is our custom, FEMNE, we host this event. It's the Africa Regional Caucus, just really to go through our position statement and make some reflections on what has been happening within the CSW space. We've participated, all of us, in a number of conversations, and we want to just go back and reflect to say, does our current position statement still hold in terms of the issues? Are they really coming out strongly? Where are we resonating with what we have presented in our position paper? Are there issues of convergence? Are there issues of divergence? So that even as we are going to continuously engage with the negotiators and with our member states or individuals that are representing our member states in New York, we should now begin to have clear issues that they can begin to advocate on our behalf, so that these are also reflected in the statement, in the agreed conclusion that they will be negotiating. So I will require maybe, Rachel, your support just to go back to post our statement so that we can all have a relook at it. So the position statement is there on the chart in both English and in French. For those that have not seen it, you can take time, just a minute or so, just to open it so that we can reflect on it. Yes, so I think Rachel is just going to also open it and share it on the screen so that we can look at it. So there we have if you can kindly allow Rachel to share a screen. Divan, we're kindly requesting if you can allow Rachel to share a screen so that we can look at the same. Confirm that you can see it. We can see it from our end. I hope our online delegates can also see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you so much for the confirmation. So we are just going to quickly go through it. We only have just about an hour to have this conversation. So just going back to the preamble there, I am going to try not to read everything, but if there are any immediate reflections or hands to comment on what you feel is currently already resonating with what is in our preamble. Maybe just really to share that our preamble was really acknowledging Africa is the most vulnerable continent when it comes to the impact of climate change, that we are disproportionately impacted with climate change, mostly also because women and girls in Africa are really positioned, their livelihoods are really centered around the agricultural market, and they also dominate in terms of the labor that is provided for food production within the market system. We also noted the percentage of women in Africa who are poor and living in rural areas that have become vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, especially when it comes to agricultural production, issues related to land rights, water resources, and biodiversity, and the impacts that climate change has had, particularly due to their dependence on land, forestry, and water resources, how the livelihoods of rural women have been impacted disproportionately. We also resonated with the cost-cutting or multi-vulnerabilities of African women insofar as how climate change impacts on sexual reproductive health rights, amongst other issues. So these were some of the issues that we were acknowledging in our preamble. So I just wanted to put it back to the floor if there are any hands, any issues that you think from the conversations that we've had, these are particularly striking for you and need to ensure that they appear in the agreed conclusions that our member states are going to be negotiating on our behalf. So I see Rosa Nicole says, how can we raise awareness on the impact of climate change to women and girls in Africa? Thank you, Rosa, for that comment. Any other hashtag Africa CSW disrupt? Any comments from Nairobi? I would like on to to the issues of concern. So we acknowledge and recognize a couple of number of issues that we pointed out, including the fact that the challenges are rooted in systems of patriarchy and other systems of oppression, including capitalism, neocolonialism, and global imperialism. So these are some of the contributing factors to the vulnerabilities of African women to climate change. But we also recognize that we are particularly concerned with the threat of climate crisis on Africa. We are also concerned about the gender inequalities amidst the ongoing armed conflicts and wars. We are also concerned that most governments, particularly of the global north countries, which are solely responsible for the crisis, are delaying their actions to address the climate change emergency. So these are our issues of concern. Before I move that, are there any reflections on these concerned issues?
We totally agree with those issues.
Thank you for confirming. Allow me to move members to our next points because of our time, so that we allow for greater conversation. So we also pointed out that we are aware that the developed countries and multinational corporations are primarily responsible for the climate crisis, and how the impacts of climate change are devastating at a global level, but are triggering crisis for indigenous and local communities in the global south, particularly women and girls, and in low-income communities in developing countries. They are people who have the least access to resources and technology to be able to adapt to the climate crisis. We also pointed out how African women have the least capacity to access green energy, and how the energy poverty disproportionately is affecting women in terms of their care responsibilities and the hours that they spend on unpaid care work. We also acknowledge that the current climate crisis is characterized by sudden and gradual onset environmental impacts such as cyclones, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, droughts, fires, amongst other issues that we pointed out. And the impacts experiences of people affected by climate-induced disasters are varying in terms of their lived realities, as they are informed by their age, ethnicity, gender, geographic location, disabilities, and the social economic status. We also acknowledge how women and men have differently been affected due to their different patterns of mobility, amongst other issues. So these are some of the issues we've pointed out. We are also aware that while everyone experiences the effects of climate change, the intensity varies disproportionately due to the various intersecting forms of oppression, the lived realities and realities of African women and girls in their diversities have shown a direct relationship between the issues of how people live through various forms of oppression, gender and other oppression, such as race, class, ability, age, sex, shape, or reduced vulnerabilities during climate change. We also are concerned that women and girls are grossly underrepresented in the climate decision-making positions of the United Nations Global Climate Negotiation at all levels. At the COP summit held in 2019, we also pointed out the statistics there that show how women were less represented compared to their male counterparts. So the issue of gender parity is also at the center of our arguments around women's positioning and decision-making spaces. We also pointed out that women and feminist political leadership is therefore a key to the achievement of global climate governance targets and meaningful climate action and justice in this generation. So we want to quickly move on to our key demands. I was just really going through it, but since it's been shared with us, we can have opportunity to really read the concerns in detail. So I see Ajo here says, I agree, a lot of the issues, of course, resonate with the impacts of women and girls. So I will quickly move on to just share in summary our key demands. Our first issue is to recognize and reward unpaid care work and resource governance. African countries should intentionally make genuine commitments to investing in gender-responsive public services, including the redistribution of roles during natural resource governance, including facilitating the provision of comprehensive and equitable universal social protection coverage for all. They should also ratify and implement and monitor the ILO 190 Convention on Unpaid Labor and localized climate laws, which will give access to and understanding of the contribution of the community who can take that, amplifying grassroots regarding unlawful exploitation of resources that is harmful to climate and modifies climate conditions negatively. So this is our first demand. Our second demand is on indigenous and local knowledge systems that must inform climate policy and action. There's a need to focus on strengthening the role of women and girls and indigenous local people in knowledge production, decision-making regarding climate change, adaptation, and finance. This should take place at various scales, from international policy formulation to national, local, and regional management and decision-making. The climate crisis calls for more and deeper partnership between women and girls and other local indigenous knowledge holders to deal with multifaceted impacts and implications of the climate crisis. So this is our second demand. Our third is on adaptation policies based on gender inclusive participatory processes. Our fourth is speaking at to improve adaptation finance. So just really that we have to ensure that adaptation finance responds to the issues concerning women, particularly in developing countries. Our fifth is on debt justice and adaptation finance as well. Our sixth is on ensuring climate justice. People saying that we need to ensure climate justice, especially in the desert and marginalized regions, by enabling them to benefit from water, electricity, and energy, including renewable energy, taking into account the economic and social conditions in an attempt to improve their livelihoods, amongst others, really access to public services. We also have a demand which says that we should put in place mechanisms to ensure adaptation investment reach women and girls, aligning global and regional climate policy instruments with national level action plans, a women's rights-based approach to loss and damage in line with the agreement of the Paris Agreement, Article 8, include non-economic losses to loss and damage, use an equity and empowerment approach to loss and damage, implementation of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, recognizing that women and girls bear the responsibility, climate financial flows and climate actions must contribute to long-term gender transformative change and poor core benefits at the local level. We are also demanding a gender-just transition. We should focus on creating regenerative economies which center systemic and feminist alternatives, recognize Africa as a special needs region due to the vulnerabilities that we pointed out in our issues of concern. We are also demanding for finance for the implementation of the gender action plans. So this is our last demand. So ladies and gentlemen, amongst other colleagues, we are now just opening it up for plenary based on our position paper, your key reflections, issues that continue to be striking in the conversations and deliberations we've been having so far, and also for you to point out key issues that you really feel need to be given to our negotiators to ensure that they make it into the agreed conclusions as we continue to look out for the document. I would also want us, for those that know and have a connection with their member states representatives, to also share, if you're able, to connect with them, to share the position paper and at least some of the issues that are going to be the center of this conversation. So I open it up now for your hands for plenary. Thank you. So I'm just going to, okay, so there's Dr. Elfie Ofong, over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation, and I want to recognize the efforts that you people have put in to prepare this position of the African region. I looked at most of the asks in that document, and honestly speaking, I agree with you. Africa is a region that has a special need and should be so considered. Over the years of my engagement, at the UN process, which is like 22 years now, we have struggled to get our viewpoints into the resolution, to be captured in the resolution. But where I am right now, I'm asking, year in, year out, we come to New York, we lobby member states, we lobby UN, delegate staff, and our viewpoints are captured in some of the resolutions. So after the resolution, so what happens? What happens back home in Africa? What is happening on the ground in Kenya, in Uganda, in Nigeria, in Tanzania? So while I just want to provoke our thoughts that while we struggle, we labor to push in our position to be captured in the resolutions, we are not holding the government officials accountable back home. So I do not want to discourage us, but I just want us to begin to think as Africa, what are we going to do? Things are not getting better in Africa, my sister. What do we do? The civic space is getting narrower and smaller each day. So, and even, the government officials that come to New York, to participate in some of these deliberations, when they get back home, there is a disconnect. They go back to business as usual. All these resolutions, I've said this in the UN NGO Committee on Social Development, where I represent my organization as the main representative. I've said it in so many other groups at the UN, where I belong to. How how do we begin to monitor these resolutions? How do we begin to insist that these resolutions are implemented? Or is it, we just come in, put in our resources. Some of us, we spend money to come to New York and do all this. So at the end of the day, how do we translate this to the poor woman in the village in Kenya, the poor woman in the village in Tanzania, the poor woman in the village in Sudan? Is there any effect on them? My sisters and brothers, I think the time has come for us to begin to think, as Africa, what do we do? Thank you.
You, Wedan Hussein.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the effort in this paper. I didn't have the time to review it all, but obviously it has very good ideas, and most of the demands that you have already read them represent all women all over the world. But I would take from the previous speaker that we need something more concrete, more than demands, more than like a roadmap of action. If we can conclude something like this or agree on this, that a frame time, a plan of action that would put states in front of their responsibilities. I mean, science said that 2050 will be the deadline of stepping back or taking a serious action. So we have a time frame to work in it. And we need a parallel time frame of action to save, to empower women to do all necessary steps towards just transition and green economy. So let's move to this. Let's add this to our demands to have a roadmap that we can go in every event, in every conference, in every meeting, and ask ourselves what about the progress, and what about the expectations, why there is no progress, and how to accelerate things. This is one thing. My country, I come from Egypt, and my country is hosting the COP27 this year. And I hope that by the end of this year, we'll have something concrete. I'm sorry to say that I've attended more than one meeting all over the world, and it's mere rhetoric. I'm not belittling any effort done. You ladies are warriors, and you are standing for our rights and our future. But speaking is not enough. Words are not enough. We need more concrete action. I come from a trade union background, and the ILO has published a very interesting paper on the transition, green economy and just transition. And even the UN Secretary last year has called upon all states to adopt this paper as one of the best ways out of many problems. So we have like a manifesto, we have like guidelines, we have many minds coming together in different fields, putting forward proposals like yours. We need now a plan of action. We need to sit down and put a framed time plan of action. Thank you.
Thank you for those reflections. Just in the chat box, there's a chat here from Joe saying debt servicing. A lot of women still need support to get investment or loan ready, as it were. We also have a comment that says, I believe that there needs to be increased awareness on the impact of climate change on women and girls in Africa. Many women cannot relate to this global challenge, and as such, they can take actionable steps or join the movement. So practicable and actionable education. Debbie, you've been raising your hand. Debbie Kadu, over to you for your comments.
Yes, thank you very much, Fadzai. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's morning for me here, possibly good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here, and I'd like to congratulate FEMNE for organizing this caucus. And this is really amazing, a first. Keep on, keep on. I know we're referring to it as an experiment, but this is still amazing, and I know it's going to be better and better. Thank you very much indeed for the position statement. My general comment is I think now we're going to just have to do more in terms of the summarizing and making it shorter and shorter. That's my assumption, Fadzai. I think that's now the challenge. You know, that's a great story. I think it's about, was it 23 pages? But now compressing it to that action language is now really the tricky part. But thank you so much to the team who've been working on this paper. Now, I just want to speak also very, very quickly to Dr. Ifi Ofong and Wegdan Husseins. I'm kind of building on their concerns. And this is something that is also of great concern for me. I believe that plan for action, I think that Wegdan proposed, I would like now to bring it back to the CSW. We need to invest now in building the capacity of women, capacitating them to actually participate effectively in the CSW process. Because if we participate effectively as women, it starts from at the member state level. So that by the time we come to this level at these 2 weeks, women have actually participated in a roadmap of sorts. So I just want to say that apart from all this very, very good work, the talking, as we're all aware, I can see comments in the chat about getting this back to the grassroots. I think now the challenge remains, even after these 2 weeks, how do we actually have a roadmap to ensure that all the women, the grassroots women, are participating in the CSW process, are therefore negotiating with the member states before these 2 weeks in New York. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. Over to you, Samia.
Hello, everybody. This is Samia from Tunisia, from Qadirat, member of FEMNE. I would like to say that FEMNE has taken really the lead in bringing its members together to work on drafting and finalizing the African position paper. It has also, in a very short time, organized the Africa CSO gathering, CSW gathering, with plenty of side events and discussions. While it is true that we need a very clear roadmap, a time frame, and a follow-up mechanism, which all these things, yet we have to admit that the voices of African women are getting louder, which is a very good thing. And this way we can put pressure and we could hold the governments accountable. I also agree that we have to build the capacity of women and of women-led organizations in all Africa so that they can do things and achieve things. While we are doing all this and we are really progressing, we are also aware that the women conditions all over the world are getting sometimes worse because of the turmoil that the world is witnessing, political instability, economic problems, etc. And I mean, despite all the efforts the UN and all CSOs are doing, sometimes, I repeat, there are, there is a regression that we see all over the place in the condition of women, and we have to be aware of all that. Women conditions will improve if there is a political will. And we have to push to get that political will. Our voices have to be louder. Once again, thank you, Huri, thank you, Memory, thank you, FEMNE, also for bringing us together so that we have one African voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samia. I will take our hand from Fatu.
Yeah, hi, good morning. I will thank you for giving me the chance, and I totally agree with that paper. You know, my name is Fatu. I am from the Gambia, West Africa. As an African, you know, I am a survivor of human trafficking. I just want to give a little contribution on what you people are saying. Yeah, as a survivor or a victim of human trafficking who was trafficked to Asia, to Kuwait in 2015, I need help in our country here. Like example, what someone was saying, we the grassroots, we need support, we need help. Because example, like the member state, like our government, they will be invited in the CSW, the UN programs, AU programs, but when they come back to Africa, when they come back to the Gambia or anywhere in Africa, any part of Africa, they will not work with the people like us, example, activists, human rights fighters, civil society organization, but they will always go and represent our countries in the UN, in the CSWs, in the African Union. When they come back here, they will not even do anything. They will not work with us. We will just be hearing in the news. They have organized some stuff for themselves and say that they're writing laws for us, example like law on human trafficking, on sexual violence, on other things, without involving the people who are affected. They will be doing things without us knowing. They will be doing on their own. Sometimes they will not even do anything with us, but they will go and represent the country itself or civil society organizations or the government. When they come back here, they will not do anything with us. We need help with our member states, and this CSW, the UN should know this. We will, example, we have a vice president, and the vice president in the country here is an activist, as she said. But the moment she becomes the vice president, she have no business with the activists. She have no business with the civil society. Everyone is mad of her. But when she sits at the UN will appreciate her. The UN, the CSW will appreciate her, thinking that she is doing wonders. We have great laws in Africa, but to implement it, our government, what is their problem? This is what I want to talk about. People like me are struggling since day one, since 2015, to make sure we are heard. Africa, it's time for us to stand up and say, do something. The racism is everywhere, even on these platforms, because sometimes I feel otherwise. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone, but I feel otherwise, stopping me from saying what I want to say in some platform here in the UN, in the CSW. Sorry to say, but it's happening. I see it myself. I was approached by so many of them. The racism is even here. Did we mean what we are saying? Please, 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 please. We have to do something as a world, as a woman, as activists, as human rights fighters. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatu. We are running out of time, colleagues. I'm just going to request us to respond to our last questions. Do we have or contacts with any negotiators? Do we know any negotiators that we can begin to make conversations with, so that these key issues that we want featured in the concluding, in the agreed conclusions, come out strongly? Any takers on that? Because we need allies in the negotiators. We need to know if we have any contacts with any negotiators whom we can leverage on and begin to pass on our messages. If you do, please do send us an email at FEMNE or in the chat box. I'm also just going to request those, I don't know if we do have also contacts with our country governments. Do any of us in this space have any knowledge of who in your country government was able to represent at the CSW, and they're currently in New York, that we can also leverage on your personal contacts with them? In the chat, I see a lot of comments coming. We agree with you, Fatu. What you're saying is true, and we think we have to think of critical actions. We also have a comment that is speaking on the voices of grassroots. Women also needs to be amplified. There's a comment here that can we have shared the draft paper with trade unions? Yes, please. I think the more we disseminate it, the better. Trish says, I hope the plan of action includes more media coverage of the issues of North America media. We do not see or hear about the full picture here in Canada. We also have a comment from Nadia, also including people who speak local African languages. Joe says, it's really the challenge of getting them to access the internet unless we use schools or so. So these are some of the comments from the chat box. We also need to use more participation from Francophone, Lusophone, Arab-speaking activists and advocates. Language and dominance of English is a huge barrier. We should include indigenous languages into the mainstream human rights work besides English and French, and thus decolonize our understanding. Only then can we include voices of indigenous women on the ground on the platforms such as CSW. So this comment is from Van. Florence says, on concerns, disparity and women being affected differently need to be worked more on and higher to really bring out the life of African women lies in the hands of the women most vulnerable to climate change. Gloria says, as the demands were being read, I noticed they were very heteronormative and very cis-leaning. Where are queer women in the demands? Where are the trans women in the demands? Where are the sex workers in these demands? We are African lesbians at Africa CSW. Sex workers and LGBTQ women continue to be structurally marginalized because of so many factors, from punitive laws to selective activism by CSOs. What is CSW66 doing to ensure female sex workers and LGBTQ women are included in such spaces? Florence also commented, I like the part in the document that point out one of the challenges is patriarchy, neo-colonialism. We need more workers, women from Africa, to work to overcome these challenges. Olusola says, mining is a very serious factor in climate change with negative impacts on health, economy, finances, and social factors, mostly affecting women and girls in the mining sector. And lastly, we need to see CSW as accessible as possible. The assumption that African women have that much access to data to be able to attend online meetings back to back needs to end. How can more women and girls across Africa be further in these meetings? So this is coming from Africa. So thank you, colleagues, for these reflections and comments that have come through. Our time is really coming to a close. Please continue to send your chats and comments so that we take note of them. Our hashtag is hashtag Africa Disrupt CSW66. Let's continue to share on Twitter, Facebook using that hashtag. Thank you so much. Let's put on our cameras and say hi to each other, sisters across the continents.
Fadzai, I just wanted to say and to greet everyone, but also just to say we are going to have another African Women's Rights Caucus next week, when we are now looking and discussing what is emerging from the negotiations. So we are really encouraging you, if you know someone who is on civil society or member states who is part of the delegation, please keep us informed in terms of what is happening, where can we advocate for stronger language, but also to tell everyone that we are just not ending at CSW66. We are doing a roadmap to COP27, which will be on climate justice. So everything that we are doing, everything that we are taking on, we really want to have very, very strong recommendations, very strong actions. We also hope that you'll be able to tell us the solutions. Let's share what needs to be done. Beyond our voices being heard, I think we need to really start demanding practical actions and start shifting, being more propositional to say, this is what we want our government, and this is what they are doing, and this is what they can do. So thank you so much, Fadzai. I know I came in just to invade, but I just thought it's important for everyone to know that there is a roadmap. We are not stopping now. We are going all the way to November to CSW. This agenda, climate change risk mitigation, affects the African continent more than any other continent. So it is in our interest to make sure that we are pushing, and we start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Memory, for those reflections. So this is time for you to just greet your sisters. If you can turn on your cameras and just say hi to other delegates, take a screenshot with your laptop or your gadgets for memories keeping. I think this would be good for you and also for ourselves. Thank you.
Can I have 15 seconds to say something?
Yes, please go ahead.
African women, African ladies. I believe that we are all part of this world, and we are all created by one God. Okay, for me, the first time Ukraine and you, the noise. Oh, hearing me.
Yeah, just two questions actually.
Fatu, I think we've lost you. You might have to
I
share.
hear it. Okay, what I was saying is that the first time Ukraine and Russia thing comes up, I totally support Ukraine. But at the end of the day, how Ukraine was treating our own brothers and sisters inside Ukraine makes me not to support in Ukraine, not in favor of Ukraine. And that Ukraine president is more evil and wicked than the Russian president. Because we Africans, we need to stand for people. We need to stand for human rights. We need to stand for our brothers and sisters. The UN should know, and everyone should know what our people in Ukraine. It's not fair. It's not fair. You put in a dog inside the dog. But the Africans, the black person or the people should not cross the border.
Apologies. I think your network is bad. We can't hear you from this end. Would you just kindly post that comment in the chat so that we can note it and be able to share? But because of time, I'm going to now quickly hand over to Guri. Over to you, Guri. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. You can definitely end this. This is your caucus. I'm so happy that you all got a chance to really connect over the documents, and we will obviously bring it to our negotiations. Thank you all.
Don't blame you. If I was
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Memory.
Bye, Dr.
Bye.
Ife. Bibish.